My name is Danielle Carter. I'm 37 years old, and I never thought I'd be walking into my mother's funeral praying my sister wouldn't show up. Not because I couldn't handle seeing her, but because I didn't trust myself not to break the silence we'd both been hiding behind for 6 years. The same 6 years since she married the man I was supposed to spend forever with. This morning, I pulled into the church parking lot with my husband, Marcus, and every nerve in my body went still. I knew she'd be there. I just didn't know what would happen when she saw who I came with. Before I tell you what cracked across her face the moment our eyes met, let me ask, have you ever been betrayed by someone who used to braid your hair? Let me take you back. The church smelled like old hymnals and lilies, just like I remembered. Same wooden pews, same crooked stained glass window with the chipped blue pane that caught the sun wrong every Sunday. It had been nearly a decade since I'd stepped inside. Not since the last time Mom begged me to come home for Christmas. Back when Lauren and I could still be in the same room without setting off a landmine. I tugged at the sleeve of my black dress, suddenly too aware of how quiet everything was. Marcus reached for my hand as we walked in, his fingers warm and steady. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. We moved down the aisle slowly. Eyes followed us, some curious, some just recognizing a face from long ago. I kept my gaze forward, locked on the casket at the front of the room, draped in white roses. That was Mom. Always preferred white. Clean, classic, and less fussy. She'd say every Easter when we begged to dye eggs neon pink. I was just about to help Dad into the front pew when I felt the shift in the room. A ripple. Like someone had opened a door and let a storm in. I turned, and there she was. Lauren. She hadn't changed much. Same golden hair curled just so, same delicate heels that looked like they'd never touched gravel. But something was different in her eyes. She scanned the pews quickly, and then she saw me. No, she saw us. Her eyes landed on Marcus, standing beside me in his dark suit, his hands still resting on my back. And in that instant, her entire expression faltered. Like she'd walked in wearing a mask, and it slipped. She blinked fast. Once. Twice. Her smile was late and too bright. Danielle, she said, nodding like we were cordial acquaintances instead of blood. Lauren, I replied, keeping my voice neutral. Travis followed a step behind her, stiff in a black suit that probably cost more than my rent back in college. His arm hovered near Lauren's waist like it used to hover near mine. He didn't speak. Just gave me a short nod and looked away. Coward. I turned back to help Dad settle into his seat. He looked smaller than I remembered. Grief had a way of doing that, shrinking people from the inside out. Marcus guided me to sit beside him. I could feel Lauren's eyes on my back, could practically hear the calculations running through her head. But I didn't turn around. I focused on Mom's photo instead, framed next to the casket, her smile soft and knowing. She'd always had that expression. Like she saw everything, even when we thought we were being clever. The service began. Soft music, gentle words from the pastor, something about light and grace and family. I nodded when appropriate. Squeezed Dad's hand when his lip trembled. But mostly, I stayed in my body. Present. Unshaken. Until the pastor invited us to speak. I hadn't planned to. But my legs moved anyway. I walked to the front, heels echoing against the hardwood floor, and turned to face a sea of faces from my past. My mother, I began, voice steadier than I expected, was the kind of woman who knew how to forgive. Not because it was easy, but because she believed peace was heavier than pride. I paused, let my eyes settle briefly on Lauren. She looked down. She taught me that grief is a room we all eventually enter. What we bring with us is our choice. Another pause. I brought love. I stepped down before my voice could betray me. As I returned to my seat, Marcus touched my hand again. Just a small gesture, but it told me everything I needed to hear. I was not the same woman Lauren had walked away from 6 years ago. And she knew it now. When the service ended, I turned toward the back of the chapel just in time to catch her watching me. But not with triumph. With something closer to fear. I didn't want to follow her. But I did. We stepped into a side room off the main chapel, the one they used for grief counseling and nursing mothers. It smelled like powdered hand soap and artificial roses. The kind of space that pretends to offer comfort, but never really does. Lauren shut the door behind us gently, like slamming it would shatter something more than just silence. For a second, neither of us said a word. She adjusted the strap on her purse, her eyes scanning the small room like she was avoiding mine on purpose. "You look different," she said finally. "Not good. Not well, just different." I almost laughed. "New city. New haircut. New life," I replied, keeping my tone level. "Funny what you can build when someone hands you the ashes." Her eyes flicked up. And there it was, that first little crack in her carefully painted mask. "I didn't expect you'd bring someone," she said. That wasn't the truth. What she meant was, she didn't expect him. Marcus had that effect. Quiet confidence. Steady presence. A man who didn't need to say much to be seen. The opposite of Travis in every way. "You've been gone a long time," she added, like I might have forgotten. 6 years, give or take. Lauren nodded slowly, wrapping her arms across her chest like armor. "I thought maybe we could talk, just us." "We are." She blinked again. Hard. I could see her struggling. With pride. With guilt. Maybe even with regret. "Travis told me you moved to Austin. That you were doing something with online education?" That stung a little. Like my entire second life had been reduced to a dismissive blurb. "I built a GED prep platform," I said. "Helps working adults finish school. It's doing well." "Oh." She looked down, then back up. "That's good." There was a time when she would have rolled her eyes at that. Back when success meant a real estate trophy husband and a country club invite. Not anymore. "You looked surprised when you saw Marcus," I said, watching her closely. Her lips pressed together. A pause. Then, finally, I recognized him. "From?" "Travis mentioned him. Years ago. They used to compete over investment rounds or something?" "Something like that." I watched as her brain did the math. 1 + 1 = threat. Maybe for the first time in a long time, Lauren felt like she wasn't holding all the cards. I took a slow breath, steadying myself. Because part of me wanted to unleash every word I had buried since the day she betrayed me. Part of me wanted to watch her squirm. But something in her face stopped me. It wasn't smugness. It wasn't victory. It was fear. "Why now?" I asked. "Why pull me aside at Mom's funeral, of all places?" She let out a short, brittle breath. "I don't know. Maybe because she's gone and I can't pretend anymore." That landed heavier than I expected. I crossed my arms. "Pretend what?" "That everything's fine, that Travis and I are fine, that this life I stole is actually what I thought it would be." I didn't flinch. But inside, something shifted. There it was. The admission. Lauren looked up at me, eyes glassy. "You don't have to believe me," she said. "I wouldn't, if I were you, but I." "Are you happy?" I asked, cutting her off. She froze. Then she said the quietest word in the world. "Number." A long silence followed. And this time, I let it sit. She stared at the floor. I stared at her. I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel triumph. I felt nothing. Maybe that was worse. After a while, I reached for the door. "I should get back to Dad," I said. She nodded, still not looking at me. I opened the door, but paused before stepping out. "You ever wonder what Mom would have said if she knew the whole truth?" Lauren didn't answer right away. Then, just as I turned to leave, she said, she knew, she always knew. And that was the first time I saw my sister as something other than the girl who took everything from me. I saw her as the woman who never really got what she wanted either. I didn't say anything else as I walked out of that room. Lauren didn't follow. Maybe she couldn't. The hallway was quiet. Just the low murmur of relatives and the faint creak of the wooden floor under my heels. I spotted Marcus near the back of the chapel, talking softly with the funeral director. As soon as he saw me, he straightened, reading my face without asking a single question. It still amazed me how easily he could do that. I took a breath and motioned him over. He moved beside me, his presence like gravity steady, grounding, impossible to ignore. "Everything okay?" he asked quietly. "Define okay," I said, managing half a smile. I glanced behind me, toward the closed door. I could feel Lauren on the other side. Still sitting in that room full of artificial flowers and dead air, probably wondering how she'd lost control of the story she spent years perfecting. "She wants to talk," I added. "More, I guess. But not now." Marcus nodded. He didn't push. "Come meet my sister," I said. He didn't blink. Just placed a hand lightly on my back as we turned and walked toward the main room again. Lauren was just stepping out of the side room when we returned. Her eyes were a little red now, but her posture snapped back into place the second she saw us walking together. She smoothed her dress, wiped beneath one eye, and put that same too bright smile back on her face. "Marcus," I said. "This is my sister, Lauren." "Oh wait." Lauren's smile didn't quite reach her eyes. "Nice to finally meet you." Marcus extended his hand. "You too." For a few seconds, the air felt strangely still, like something was waiting to drop. Then Travis stepped into view, and everything cracked open. He hadn't seen Marcus before now, but when he did, when their eyes met, something shifted in his expression. He stiffened. His lips parted, like he wanted to say something but couldn't. And then, "Foster," Travis said. His voice had lost its polish. Marcus stayed calm, but I felt his body respond just slightly beside mine. "Reynolds." Lauren blinked. "Wait, you two know each other?" Marcus didn't answer right away. He just looked at Travis for a long moment. Calm, collected, dangerous. "It's been a while," Marcus said evenly. "Last time I saw you, you were trying to pitch investors on a VR warehouse model that didn't have an exit plan." The silence that followed was deafening. Travis gave a tight laugh, clearly forced. "Well, things have evolved since then." "Some things have," Marcus said. "Some haven't." That's when Lauren turned to me. Her smile had disappeared completely now. "You married him?" I nodded. 2 years ago." Her eyes narrowed, flicking between us. "You never mentioned." "You never asked," I said. She looked shaken. And for the first time in a very long time, I didn't feel small in her presence. I felt still and strong. "What a small world," Travis muttered, trying to recover. "Maybe we'll all catch up sometime." Marcus smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "My schedule's full, but you can contact my office." Lauren's face went pale. And just like that, the upper hand had quietly, completely shifted. A few family members glanced over, sensing something but not quite placing it. We turned back toward the rows of pews. Dad was sitting alone near the front, rubbing the edge of his program with his thumb. "I should sit with him," I said softly. Marcus nodded. "I'll be nearby." I made my way toward Dad, the sounds of shuffling feet and whispered condolences buzzing around me. But I couldn't stop thinking about the look on Lauren's face. She hadn't planned for this. For me. For Marcus. For any version of my life that didn't quietly crumble after she took the one thing I thought I'd never recover from. But I had recovered. And now she knew it. I sat down next to Dad just as the pastor returned to the podium. I could still feel Lauren watching me. But I didn't look back. And somewhere behind me, Travis was staring at the man I'd chosen. The man he never could be. I sat next to Dad through most of the service, listening to the pastor speak about grace and legacy and eternal peace. The words floated around me like dust, soft and weightless, but they didn't land. None of it did. Grief has a strange way of turning the volume down on the world. Dad didn't speak. He just sat still, his hands folded in his lap, the program bent slightly at one corner from how tightly he was gripping it. I glanced down and saw Mom's picture on the front, her smile soft, her eyes somehow knowing. That same smile she always gave me after I'd made it through something hard. She would have smiled at me today. I could almost hear her voice in my head. You did good, sweetheart. You showed up with your head held high. That's more than most could do. When the service ended, people rose slowly, like none of us quite wanted to be the first to move. Dad stood with effort, pressing one hand into the pew like it was the only thing holding him up. I stayed beside him, one arm around his back, steadying his tall, stooped frame. People came one by one hugging, whispering condolences, sharing stories about her chicken pot pie or the time she taught their kid how to use the card catalog at the library. And I nodded, smiled, said, "Thank you," over and over. But I wasn't really there. My eyes kept drifting to the front of the chapel, to the white roses, the closed casket, and to the photo they'd propped up beside it. It wasn't just a picture of her. It was us, me and Mom, from a few years back. I'd forgotten that photo even existed. She had her arm wrapped around me outside a little cafe in Austin. I remember she'd insisted on visiting, just the two of us, after I moved. It was the first time since the fallout that she came alone. No Lauren. No guilt. Just me and her, drinking black coffee and splitting a lemon scone. I stared at that photo now, remembering the feel of her arm around me. The way she tucked her hand into the crook of my elbow and said, "I'm proud of you. Even if it hurts, I'm proud." My throat tightened. A hand touched my shoulder, pulling me back to the present. "Danny?" I turned. It was Mrs. Hartley, the neighbor who lived across the street from Mom and Dad since before I was born. "You look just like her," she said. "Your mama. Especially around the eyes." "Thank you," I managed. She smiled and leaned in, lowering her voice. "She left something for you, sweetheart. Told me where to find it in case your daddy forgot." She reached into her purse and pulled out a small cream-colored envelope. It had my name on it, in her handwriting. Suddenly, I couldn't breathe. Mrs. Hartley touched my arm again. "She wrote it a few weeks ago, said not to rush reading it, said you'd know when." I nodded, tucking it into my coat pocket like it was fragile. Because it was. A weight pressed into my chest that hadn't been there before. One part sorrow, one part gratitude, and something else I couldn't name. I looked over at Dad. He was talking quietly to the pastor now, his voice lower than I'd heard in years. There was a slight shake to his hands. I crossed the room and slipped my arm into his. "You ready to go?" I asked. He looked at me like he'd just remembered I was there. "Yeah," he said softly. "Yeah, I think so." Outside, the sky had turned pale gray. Not quite raining, but heavy, like it might break any second. I stood on the church steps while the rest of the guests trickled out, watching the wind tug at the hem of Lauren's dress as she whispered something to Travis. Neither of them looked over at me. I didn't care. Marcus appeared at my side, his hand gently brushing against mine. "You okay?" "No," I said quietly. "But I will be." He nodded. We stood there together, just for a moment. And as I reached into my pocket to touch the edge of that envelope again, I realized grief wasn't the only thing I'd buried today. And whatever was inside that letter felt like it might just bring something back to life. Back at the house, the world felt too quiet. Dad had gone to bed early, claiming he needed to rest, but I knew that wasn't the real reason. Grief made everything loud, especially silence, and I think he just wanted to sit with his memories in the dark. I sat on the edge of the guest bed, still in my funeral dress, the fabric stiff and unfamiliar. The envelope sat on the nightstand. Cream-colored. My name in her handwriting. It had taken me hours just to look at it without my chest tightening. Now, with the house still and the clock ticking past midnight, I picked it up and held it for a moment like maybe it would warm in my hand, like her voice might spill out before I even opened it. My fingers trembled as I peeled it open. "My Danielle," it began. Nobody called me that but her. And only when she was feeling tender. "If you're reading this, it means I've already left the room. And, baby, I know that hurts. It hurts me too, writing this. But there are some things a mother knows she has to say, even if she's not around to say them out loud." I paused. Just those 2 lines. And already I was crying. Not sobbing, just those soft, steady tears that fall without permission. She went on. You've always been strong, even when you didn't feel it. And I know the last few years took more out of you than you'll ever admit. I saw it. I saw what they did your sister, that man. And I stayed quiet longer than I should have. Not because I didn't care, but because I didn't know how to hold both of you at once without dropping pieces of myself. I swallowed hard. My pulse thudded in my ears. I hadn't expected her to name them. Not Lauren. Not Travis. I want you to know I never blamed you for leaving. I would have left too. In fact, I did once. You just didn't know it. I blinked. What? Before you were born, there was someone else. Someone I thought I'd spend my life with. But then your father came along, kind, steady, patient. The opposite of chaos. And I chose the kind of love that lasts over the kind that burns. My breath caught. I had never heard this story. Not even hints of it. And suddenly, I could see her. Younger. Torn. Trying to make the same kind of choice I had. It hit me, sharp and sudden. Maybe we'd both loved men who didn't love us the way we deserved. Maybe she saw in Travis what she once saw in someone else. And maybe that's why she had stayed silent. Not out of weakness, but because she understood the pain too well. I wiped my face on the sleeve of my sweater and kept reading. I know your sister hurt you. I know you think I didn't see it. But I did. And baby, that's my biggest regret, not stepping in, not saying out loud what my heart knew, that you were the one who always tried to keep the peace. You were the one who walked away, not because you were weak, but because you refused to fight dirty. A sob slipped out then. Quiet, raw. She saw me. Even when I thought I'd disappeared from her world, she had been watching. Loving. Holding space for me in her own quiet way. The next line stopped me cold. If Lauren is there today, and I imagine she is, please don't waste your time trying to make her understand you. She sees you through her own pain, not through truth. And you can't fix someone who's still hiding from herself. I let the letter fall onto my lap, my hands shaking. That line, that was the key. The thing I didn't know I needed permission for. To stop trying. To stop begging for her to see me. To forgive me. To treat me like a sister instead of a threat. Because maybe that version of Lauren never existed. Or maybe she was buried under wounds I didn't cause and couldn't heal. I looked around the room, Mom's old reading glasses still on the dresser, a framed photo of us at a lake in Arkansas. I must have been 11. She was holding a fish up and laughing with her whole body. That's what I remembered most about her laughter. It started in her chest and took her whole face with it. I hadn't heard that sound in too long. But now, in her letter, I could feel it. Like she was sitting beside me again, brushing my hair behind my ear like she did when I cried as a kid. I picked the letter back up, finding the last paragraph. I won't tell you to forgive, that's yours to decide. But I will tell you this. Don't carry what isn't yours. You are not her shadow. You are not what he left behind. You are your own. And that was it. No goodbye. No love, Mom. Just that. And somehow, it was everything. I folded the letter carefully, tucking it back into the envelope like it was sacred. Because to me, it was. There were still things unresolved. Still pain sitting heavy between me and Lauren. Still a past that hadn't been spoken. But, for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel alone in it. I turned off the light, crawled under the quilt that still smelled faintly of lavender, and whispered into the dark. Thank you, Mama. And somewhere between grief and grace, I finally slept. The next morning, the house felt different. Not lighter. Just quieter in a way that wasn't peaceful. Like it was waiting for me to do something with the weight it held. Dad had already gone out, said something about checking in at the hardware store, but I knew it was just his way of escaping. That was his grief language, errands, tasks, things to fix. Mine was drawers. I started in the kitchen, opening one after another. Old menus. Expired coupons. Birthday candles. A tangle of charger cords nobody had used since the early 2000s. It was all so ordinary it hurt. Then I moved into the study. Mom's handwriting was everywhere on sticky notes, taped recipes, even the spine of an old notebook labeled Christmas Lists 2012. I held it in my hands longer than I expected. Not because of the lists, but because her handwriting still made my breath catch. There was one drawer I avoided at first. The one under the old roll-top desk. It creaked when I finally pulled it open, as if the house itself was reluctant to let me go there. Inside, a small velvet pouch, navy blue and soft with age. I didn't remember seeing it growing up. I reached in, half expecting it to be empty. But my fingers brushed something cool and solid. A necklace. Not flashy, just a gold locket, simple and oval, with a tiny dent in the corner. I turned it over in my palm before I opened it. On one side, a photo of me, maybe around 7. Tooth missing, eyes full of the world. On the other, a baby I didn't recognize. My stomach twisted. It wasn't Lauren. It definitely wasn't me. And yet, the eyes. The locket snapped shut in my fingers like it was guarding its own secret. I sat down, suddenly dizzy. The quiet of the house pressed in on me like a question. Who was that baby? I wanted to think it was just some cousin, some forgotten family friend. But the way it was placed opposite me, the symmetry said something else. I set the locket on the desk and stared at it. And then I saw it a note, tucked between envelopes beneath the drawer lining. I slid it out. It wasn't long. Just a few lines in Mom's familiar pen. For when the time is right. Danny should know everything. But only when she's ready. No date. No signature. Just that. Everything in me slowed. Grief is strange. It cracks you open, but it also sharpens your instincts. And in that moment, I knew this wasn't just a trinket. This was part of a truth Mom never got to say aloud. A truth she'd hidden in layers. Paper, velvet, silence. I stood, clutching the locket, and walked to the mirror above the fireplace. The kind that had seen years of family photos, Christmas garlands, and birthday balloons. I looked at myself. Not for beauty. Not for signs of aging. But to ask myself the question I'd been dodging for years. Who am I when I'm not defined by what Lauren took from me? The answer didn't come, not fully. But the locket in my hand felt like the start of it. I turned it over again, and this time I noticed something else on the back, so faint I almost missed it, were the initials AR. I didn't know anyone in the family with those initials. And just like that, grief shifted again. From stillness to a pulse, a slow throb of curiosity. And, under that, a flicker of something like fear. I needed answers. But I also needed to brace myself for what those answers might cost. Because this wasn't just about Lauren anymore. Or Travis. Or even Mom's silence. This was about a part of our family I didn't know existed. A drawer she never opened until she had no choice but to leave it for me. I clutched the note and the locket to my chest and backed away from the mirror. I wasn't ready. But I couldn't unknow it now. I took one deep breath, then whispered to the room like she might still be listening. Okay, Mom. I'll follow the trail. Just stay with me while I do. And the house, still filled with her scent lavender and linen, didn't answer. But something inside me shifted. And I knew chapter 1 of her story was about to rewrite chapter 10 of mine. I didn't sleep much that night. The locket stayed beside me on the nightstand, like it might whisper something in the dark if I listened hard enough. But all I heard was the creak of the hallway floor and the low hum of the refrigerator downstairs. By morning, I was still holding the note from Mom, folded so many times it was nearly soft as fabric. Danny should know everything. But only when she's ready. The question was I ready? I carried the locket downstairs, not even bothering with coffee. My hands moved without thinking, pulling up my laptop, logging into an old Gmail account I hadn't touched in years. The one Mom used to send me recipes and chain emails with subject lines like, "Angels Among Us," or "Pass this prayer on." I typed, "Locket, baby, anything that might trigger a buried message. Nothing. Until I searched audio. Das. There was a single voice memo attachment, dated 2 months before Mom passed. I clicked play. Her voice filled the room, soft and a little shaky. Danny, if you're hearing this, I'm gone. Or close enough. I wasn't sure how to explain in person. Some things, I just never found the right moment. You always asked me why I kept so many boxes. Why I held on to things no one else remembered. Well, some things I kept because no one else remembered. She paused. I could hear her clear her throat. Ask Aunt Noreen. She knows more than I do now. But I wanted you to have the locket. I wanted you to see that there was a world before Lauren, before Travis. Before even you, baby. And you were never second to anyone. Remember that. My heart clenched. My breath caught. There was no signature. Just silence. I sat for a moment, then played it again. And again. Each time, I heard a different part of her I hadn't noticed before. The weight in her pauses. The careful way she said, before even you. What came before me? I called Aunt Noreen. We hadn't spoken in years, not since a Thanksgiving where she and Lauren had a shouting match over who ruined the cranberry sauce. She picked up on the third ring. Danielle? Her voice was cautious, like she wasn't sure if I was a memory or a warning. Hi, Aunt Noreen. I found something. In Mom's drawer. I explained the locket. The photo, the initials, and Mom's note. There was a pause on the other end. Long enough I thought the call had dropped. Then she said, "She never told you about Alice, did she?" My pulse spiked. Alice? Your sister, she said quietly. Well, half, sister. Before your father. Before everything. I didn't breathe. She was only a baby when things went bad. Your mom didn't talk about her much. Not because she didn't love her, but because it hurt too much. I sank into the kitchen chair. Where is she now? I don't know, Noreen said. She was adopted after the courts got involved. Your mom was young, Danny. Really young. She made mistakes, but she never stopped looking. Not really. I couldn't speak. My mom had a daughter she never told me about, a sister I never met. A whole life hidden in a drawer. Do you know her last name now? I asked. I only know the initials, Noreen said. She was born Alice Rose. That's all I've got. Alice Rose. The initials on the locket. I closed my eyes. The baby in the photo wasn't a cousin. Wasn't a friend. She was family. My family. And I'd gone my whole life thinking I was the first daughter. The only daughter. That Lauren was the only sister I had to survive. But here was another. Gone before I was born. And maybe still out there. After I hung up, I sat in the living room for a long time, just holding the locket. I thought of all the times I'd asked Mom about her past and gotten only soft smiles or vague stories. She wasn't trying to hide who she was. She was trying to protect who I thought she was. That was love, too. Complicated. Messy. Human. I opened the locket one more time, looking at Alice's tiny face. There was something in the eyes. A tilt of the head. A softness around the mouth that reminded me of me. And just like that, a new thought formed. Not just who was Alice. But does she know about us? Does she know she was loved? Does she know she was missed? I didn't know how to find her. But I knew one thing. I was going to try. Even if it meant rewriting everything I thought I knew about my mother and about myself. I thought grief was about missing someone. But that morning, staring at the ceiling from the edge of my childhood bed, I realized grief is also about questioning everything they ever said, everything they never did. Wondering how much of your story was real and how much of it was just what they needed it to be. I was Mom's second daughter. And I never knew. That should have made me feel, I don't know, lesser. Like a replacement. But instead, all I felt was weight. Like I'd stumbled into someone else's unfinished chapter. The air in the room smelled like old fabric and lemon wood polish. Same as it always had. I turned toward the bookshelf where the photo albums used to be. 3 faded leather binders sat tucked between dusty candles and a porcelain angel with one wing chipped off. I pulled them down, one by one. Photos of me as a toddler, me in the kitchen with flour all over my face, me holding a certificate from 3rd grade. But something felt off. Like the story started halfway through. The earliest album began in 1991. I was born in '88. Where were the rest? As I flipped the last page, a folded piece of yellow paper slipped out and fluttered to the floor. It was a receipt. From a law office 2 towns over. Client: Patricia Ann Carter. Subject: Records request. Adoption petition, 1979. Status: denied. Access restricted. My chest tightened. She had tried. Not just once, maybe, but enough to leave a trail. And all these years, while I was asking her about summer camp and which college I should apply to, she was carrying this invisible thread. A daughter out there somewhere. A silence that stretched through every birthday and Christmas. I sat back on the carpet, the old house groaning softly around me. And that's when I heard the front door. Not Marcus. Not a neighbor. Lauren. Her voice rang through the house like it had never left. Danny, you here? I didn't answer. I needed one more second to become still again. When I stepped into the hallway, she was already halfway up the stairs, dressed like she'd just come from a brunch that cost more than my mortgage. She stopped cold when she saw me holding the receipt. Her smile cracked. What's that? I didn't blink. Did you know? Know what? About Alice. She didn't speak. Just looked at the paper in my hand like it might catch fire. You did, I said quietly. Did Mom tell you? No. Lauren said, stepping past me into the room. Dad did. Years ago. He found something, I don't know. He told me to forget it. And you did? What else was I supposed to do? I was 15. I stared at her. At the way she said it like it was reasonable. Like I was unreasonable for needing to know who the baby in the locket was. Lauren sat on the edge of the bed, smoothing her skirt. Look, Mom had secrets, but that doesn't make her a monster. 1. I never said she was, I said. But it does mean there's a whole part of her I never knew. And maybe a whole part of me I haven't figured out. She sighed. So what now, you're going to go find some woman who may not even know she's related to you? Dig up everything Mom tried to keep buried? No, I said. I'm going to figure out why she buried it in the first place. There was a long silence between us. Then Lauren said, softer. You don't know what she gave up, Danny. You think you're hurt? You have no idea the kind of pain she carried. I looked at her. No, I said. I don't, because no one ever let me see it. That night, I curled up with the locket in my palm again. It felt heavier now. Not like a keepsake. More like a key. I thought about Alice out there, maybe with a family of her own. Maybe not. Maybe she looked like Mom. Maybe she didn't even know she'd been adopted. I didn't know what I'd say if I found her. Didn't even know what I was looking for, really. Just truth, I guess. Because now that Mom was gone, I didn't want to inherit her silence. And maybe, just maybe, I didn't have to. That night, after Lauren left, I sat in the living room staring at the locket again. It wasn't glowing or anything. It was just metal. Cool, heavy, ordinary. And yet, holding it made me feel like something was shifting. Like Patricia had left me a breadcrumb. A direction. I opened my laptop. I had no idea what I was looking for, really. Alice was a common name. Carter was even more common. And she'd been adopted. Her last name could be anything now. Still, I typed Missouri closed adoption 1983 female into the search bar. It wasn't much. But it was something. It started with public records. Birth registries. Then I ended up on genealogy forums. Adoption reunion boards. Then the lawyer's office. The same firm that had handled Patricia's will. They had a second listing, an archived client from 1989, a woman named Elise Rowan. The same lawyer, different file. But something about the date just a few years after Alice would have turned 6 made my stomach flip. I clicked. The record didn't reveal much, just a notarized legal change of guardian petition. Elise Rowan, minor, filed out of Austin, Texas. Her adoptive parents had divorced. She'd stayed with the mother. But something about it. It felt like something. I don't know how long I sat there, flipping between tabs. The clock said 2:47 a.m. I hadn't noticed. Marcus came out of the bedroom, rubbing his eyes. "You okay?" I nodded, still scrolling. "I think I found her." He blinked. Who? Who? "Alice," I whispered. "Or maybe her name's Elise now." He frowned. "Danielle." "Just look," I said, spinning the laptop toward him. He leaned over the couch, scanning the screen. "You're guessing this is her based on a lawyer's name and the year?" "I know it sounds thin," I said quickly. "But what if Patricia followed her? What if she kept tabs after the adoption, even secretly?" He exhaled slowly. "And what if this woman has no idea? What if she's lived a full, happy life and your message breaks it apart?" That stopped me. For a second. Then I shook my head. Or maybe she's wondered her whole life and nobody ever told her. He sat beside me now, softer. "Babe, what are you hoping to get out of this?" I stared at the screen. A name. A place. A digital breadcrumb, just like the locket. "I don't know," I whispered. "Closure, maybe. A piece of the truth. Or just to tell her she wasn't forgotten." The next day, I searched Elise Rowan on Facebook. Too many. I added Austin, Texas. Fewer. One stood out. Profile picture of a woman, early 40s maybe. Sandy hair. Wide-set eyes, the kind that almost looked like they were holding back something, curiosity, maybe, or pain. My breath caught. I clicked the photos. A few family shots. A little boy, a dog. One birthday cake that read Elise. "You're golden." In bright frosting. She looked normal. Happy. Whole. But her smile, something about it was crooked, like she wasn't used to smiling with her eyes. It reminded me of Patricia. The smile she wore for others. Not the one she saved for the kitchen table. My hands hovered over the keyboard. "What do you even say?" "Hi. You might be my half-sister. Our mother gave you up and never told anyone except a locket." "Yeah. Number." I closed the laptop. Then opened it again. Then shut it. Then stared at the locket on the counter. By midnight, I had the message drafted. Just one line. "Hi Elise, I know this is unexpected, and I don't want to intrude. But I found something that might connect us. If this is you, I think we might be related." I didn't send it. Not yet. But I copied it into a note. Saved it. Looked at it 100 times. The next morning, Marcus was already dressed for work. He kissed my cheek on his way out. "Sleep better?" I nodded, though I hadn't. He paused by the door. "Just be sure, Danny. Don't open something unless you're ready for what might be inside." I didn't answer. After he left, I opened the message again. Then I clicked send. And the second I did, my chest tightened. Not fear. Not regret. Hope. Small, scary, but alive. Like maybe, after all this time, Patricia wasn't the only one carrying a secret. I stared at my phone for hours. Nothing. No read receipt. No reply. Just silence. The kind of silence that didn't feel peaceful, it felt like rejection. Like knocking on a door you're not sure exists and hearing nothing. By the second night, I had convinced myself I was wrong. Elise wasn't Alice. The dates didn't match exactly. The locket had been a fluke. The whole thing just another emotional thread I'd pulled too far. But then, just before midnight, my phone buzzed. One new message. It was from her. "Hi, I'm not sure what this is about. Can you explain?" My heart stopped. Then started racing. It was cautious. Distant. But, she replied. I waited 10 minutes before writing back. Didn't want to seem too eager. Didn't want to scare her off. I typed and erased a dozen times. Eventually, I wrote, I understand this may come out of nowhere. I recently lost my mother, and while going through her things, I found something, a locket. Inside was a photo of a little girl. It had your birthday engraved. I believe she may have been your birth mother. Then I sat back, breathed. Seconds ticked by. Then a minute. Then 5. She was typing. And then nothing. The bubble disappeared. The next morning, Marcus noticed me checking my phone every 10 seconds. You hear anything? He asked, pouring coffee. She replied. Then went quiet. He gave me a look. The same one he gave when I left the stove on or forgot an appointment. Danny. I know, it's fragile. But this isn't just curiosity anymore. If there's a piece of my mom's heart out there, walking around not knowing who she is, I have to try. He handed me my coffee and nodded. Just be careful. You're good at healing people. But this might hurt both of you. That afternoon, Elise replied. My parents never told me I was adopted. I don't even know if this is real. Why now? That question stuck with me. Why now? Why open a wound buried for 4 decades? I didn't have a perfect answer. Just a quiet ache in my chest that whispered, because someone has to. I wrote, I can't imagine how that feels. I'm not trying to take anything from you. But my mother, she left that locket hidden for years. I think it meant something. Maybe she hoped you'd find us one day. Or maybe she just wanted someone to know she never forgot. A full day passed. Then she wrote, Can you send a picture of the locket? I set it on a blue kitchen towel, took the photo, and sent it. Seconds later, the dots popped up. Then, I've seen this before. My dad had it, years ago. He said it was something he bought at a pawn shop. He never let me wear it. My breath caught. She had seen it. Touched it. All those years she'd been closer to Patricia than she ever knew. What do you want from me? She wrote next. He hesitated. It would have been easy to say nothing. But that wouldn't have been true. I wanted her to know. To feel seen, to connect, maybe. I'd like to talk. In person, if you're open. No pressure, just coffee. Another long pause. Then, let me think about it. That night, I found myself back in the guest room, where I'd kept the box of Patricia's letters. I opened the lid, and there it was own I hadn't read before. Yellowed envelope. No stamp. Just a name. Alice. I opened it, hands trembling. The letter wasn't long. Just a handful of sentences in Patricia's soft, slanted handwriting. I think of you every day. I imagine your laugh. Your first steps. I hope your mother is kind, and your home is warm. If I could undo what I did, I would hold you and never let go. But I wasn't strong then. I hope someday, you'll understand that I loved you by letting you go. Tears blurred the ink. It was the kind of love that didn't come in loud declarations but in broken, unfinished sentences. I took a photo of the letter and sent it to Elise. No message attached. Sometimes, words get in the way. The next morning, just as the sun crept through the blinds, my phone buzzed again. One line. Okay, I'll meet you. And I knew. Everything was about to change. I got there early. Too early. The cafe was quiet-tone of those small, tucked-away places with chipped mugs and mismatched chairs. The kind of place where time moved slower. Where nervous energy had nowhere to hide. I picked a table by the window. Ordered a chamomile tea I didn't touch. The locket sat in my coat pocket, warm from my hands. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. And then I saw her. She walked up with the kind of posture that said, don't get too close. Jacket zipped all the way up. Purse held like armor. She hesitated at the door for a second before stepping in. When our eyes met, I stood too fast. Elise? She nodded, tight-lipped. Hi. We sat. Not across from each other. More like diagonal. The kind of angle where you don't have to look someone straight in the face unless you're ready. I didn't know what to expect, she said, arms folded. Still don't. That makes 2 of us. A long pause followed. Cups clinked in the background. Somewhere behind us, someone laughed too loudly and it felt wrong. She tapped a ring on her finger. It wasn't fancy, but it looked worn. Familiar. I've had this since I was 12, she said. My mom gave it to me after a surgery, said I was a fighter. I nodded. She sounds like she loved you well. She did, still does. There was no accusation in her voice. Just quiet defense. I understood it. I wasn't here to replace anything. Only to offer something she never asked for. I reached into my pocket, slowly. Placed the locket on the table between us. She stared. Didn't touch it. I looked at this 100 times, she whispered. Wondered why my dad hid it from me. Now I wonder why she gave it away. I leaned in. She didn't. She just couldn't keep it. Her eyes flicked up. I'm not trying to rewrite your life, Elise. But my mother wrote that letter for a reason, and I think part of her hoped you'd find your way back, even if she never got to say it out loud. Her expression softened for a second. Then hardened. She left me. Whatever her reasons were, she still left. I nodded. You're right. Silence. I'm not asking you to forgive her, I said. But maybe, just understand that she never forgot you. That cracked something. Not visibly. But I felt it. Her hand hovered near the locket. Then dropped. She would have ruined everything, she said, eyes misting. I had a life. I have a life. I'm not someone's lost cause. I don't see you that way. But she did. Right? Gave me away like I was a mistake to bury. There it was. The wound underneath all the words. I wanted to defend Patricia. Say she was young, say she had no choice. But that would have made it about me. So instead, I pulled something from my bag. A small framed photo. Black and white. Worn edges. It was Patricia holding a baby. That baby. I found this in her drawer. Wrapped in a scarf. She didn't keep photos of me or Lauren this way, just this one. Elise took it without asking. Her thumb ran over the frame like it might change something. Or restore something. I didn't come here to cry, she said, laughing bitterly as she blinked fast. I didn't come here to make you. Another pause. Then, she died not knowing if I'd ever come. She died hoping you would. Elise looked down. Then out the window. Then back at the photo. Finally, she said it. I don't know what to do with this. You don't have to do anything, I said. This doesn't have to mean more than you want it to. She stared at me. And for the first time since she walked in, she really looked. Not like I was a stranger. Not like I was a threat. Just a woman sitting across from her, holding the same kind of ache. We sat in silence for a while. Not awkward. Just still. And when she finally stood to leave, she took the photo with her. Left the locket. That felt like a decision. Not a door slammed shut, but one left ajar. After she left, I sat alone for a few minutes. Staring at the locket. Holding the weight of it in my hand. Not everything broken needs to be fixed. But some things deserve to be held. Even if only for a while. It had been 4 days. 4 long days since Elise walked out of that cafe with the photo tucked into her coat and 1,000 unsaid things still hanging between us. I hadn't heard from her. No texts, no calls, nothing. And I hadn't expected to. Not really. But still. I found myself watching the street every time I passed that cafe. Wondering if maybe she'd be there again, sitting in the corner, waiting. She never was. I was folding laundry when it happened. Not some dramatic knock. No rainstorm. No music swelling in the background. Just the soft thud of a mailbox closing. I walked out to check, expecting bills or junk coupons. But there it was. A small envelope. No name. No return address. Just my address, in neat, careful handwriting. I stood there for a moment, heart thudding too loud for such a small thing. Inside was a photo. The same photo I'd given Elise. But this time, it had something new on the back. A note. Not long. Not emotional. Just 5 words, written in pen so light I had to tilt the paper to see it clearly. Thank you for holding her. That was it. No name. No promise. No apology. But I didn't need those. Because in that moment, I knew. She wasn't rejecting the past anymore. She was carrying it finally on her own terms. I sat on the edge of my bed, holding the photo in my lap. The fabric of the comforter soft beneath my fingertips, the window open just enough to let in the early spring breeze. Patricia would have liked this moment. Quiet. Earned. Not loud or showy. Just full. I thought about all the versions of myself I'd had to let go of to get here. The daughter who needed answers. The sister who fought for justice. The woman who tried to fix what wasn't hers to fix. And now, this version. The one who simply lets go. I didn't need Elise to call me. Or show up. Or hug me in some teary, dramatic ending. What she gave me those 5 words was enough. More than enough. Because they meant she'd looked again. At the photo. At the locket. At the history. And instead of running from it, she was finally starting to carry it. Even if just a little. Later that day, I took the locket out from my drawer. Held it in my palm. The gold had dulled slightly. Time does that. But the hinge still worked, smooth and quiet. Inside was the same photo. Elise as a baby, bundled in that hospital blanket. I smiled and closed it gently. Then placed it in a small wooden box. Not to forget it, but because it didn't need to be held every day anymore. Some memories, once understood, can rest. I went outside and sat on the porch. The sun was warm. A neighbor's wind chimes tinkled in the breeze. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was waiting. Not for an apology. Not for closure. Not for someone to see me. Because I had seen myself through this. All of it. And I'd come out the other side. Not fixed. Not finished. But free.